As a driven dentist, you see the world differently. Where some see scarcity, you see abundance. When others want to give up, you keep going. You're building an amazing life of significance. That means you can't rely on ordinary advice from ordinary advisors to get to your goals. You want advice that's going to help maximize your net worth so you can take even better care of the people you love, the causes you care about, and make your dent in the universe. But the fact is, this advice remains hidden because relatively few professionals are well versed in them, and the extremely affluent don't care to let you know about them. Join us as we pull back the curtain to reveal the often hidden advice and strategies used by today's most successful individuals and families. Welcome to Dental Wealth Nation. Here's your host, Tim McNeely.
Hey, welcome everyone. I am so glad that you are here today. And I don't know about you, but one of the things that seems to always spiral out of control in my business is the money that I spend. I make more and somehow I end up spending more too. It's a little bit of a pain point sometimes. And reducing those costs sometimes can feel like a project. And that's why I'm so glad that you are here today, because by the time we finish, you're going to know that reducing costs in your dental practice, it's actually easier than you've ever thought possible. You're going to have a new mindset when it comes to reducing costs. I know you think it can be painful, but you're going to see it doesn't have to be that way. But most importantly of all, you're going to feel excited and relieved knowing that you can reduce costs in your practice and in the process, increase your practice valuation. This is absolutely amazing. And I'm so excited to have Matthew Godley here today, because when it comes to helping dentists put money back in their pocket, this is just so much more than a business for Matthew. It is something that's very personal to him. He comes from a family that's involved in dentistry, and he loves helping put your hard-earned money back in your pocket and the pocket of your employees. Matthew is the CEO of Spindley, and Spindley is a cost reduction platform that helps dentists lower their operating expenses. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me on, and excited to get into the discussion today.
Yeah, I'll tell you, expenses feel like they're always spiraling out of control. And it's so hard sometimes to keep track of what I'm spending and where I'm spending it, and do the analysis and shop the vendors and do the cost comparison. Like this can be a headache, can't it?
It really can be. And I experienced that firsthand, as you mentioned, with my parents who ran a dental practice. And the priority is certainly in the right place with the patients. And if it's not necessarily on patients, it's on a number of other areas outside of determining where cost reduction can take place. So with inflation and labor shortages, supply chain issues, the costs are definitely increasing, as we're seeing in the dental industry.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned, right, Spindley is really this cost reduction platform that can help lower operating expenses. So what are some of those operating expenses that Spindley looks at? And tell me a little bit kind of about the genesis of this platform and really the areas that you're working on lowering those expenses in.
Well, I come from an entrepreneurial family. I have an uncle who actually oversees and runs amusement parks across the Carolinas, and I was able to meet with his CFO one day, and turns out they were overpaying around $550,000 a year on payment processing. And that just was the inspiration, frankly, for Spindley, because I thought, if they can be overpaying by $550,000 on payment processing, where else are they overpaying, and who else is overpaying in those areas? And naturally, with my parents having a dental practice, I took a look, and they were overpaying in a lot of administrative expense categories like payroll, health benefits, retirement plans, commercial insurance, and to add on to that, additionally, waste management and internet. So those are areas that Spindley actually is able to come in and help reduce costs on.
And how did you come in and actually start working on reducing these costs? Like how does this work?
So our platform is straightforward. There's no cost for a practice or a DSO group practice to join. All that someone has to do is select which categories they would like to reduce costs on. And then our platform allows for clients to upload their existing agreements and invoices on those services. We've created a network of providers that are able to review these rates and terms and within a time window submit their best offer. One of the nice things about Spindley is we actually protect the privacy of our clients. So we're not sharing any personal or private information about them or the company. And our providers are submitting an offer based on specific data necessary to those service categories. When the time window expires, we share a cost reduction analysis with the clients and highlight the areas where they can actually reduce costs, and they can either accept a new offer from one of our providers or we can renegotiate with their existing providers on their behalf. And just to give you an idea about how effective the platform is, we've seen costs be reduced up to 50%. In certain categories, the average is between 20 and 40%.
Right. That's just amazing when I hear about this, because, I know so often in my life and some of my clients' lives, right, when they're looking at the cost reduction, they usually have to start making phone calls and call this vendor and call that vendor and say, hey, send me a quote, send me a quote, send me a quote. And then they've got to get all the emails and they got to put them all together. And then you got to put a spreadsheet together and figure out what's what and compare apples to apples and orange. I mean, it's a painful process to really look at this. And so it sounds like you really have built a streamlined platform that takes some of that burden of doing all this cost comparison off of a doctor's back.
Absolutely. I'm glad you see it that way, because that was our inspiration for creating Spendley, was to make it as seamless and simple of a process as possible. And because we have partnerships with these companies, there are no applications necessary, and these practices can see new offers within minutes instead of days, weeks, or years of getting bombarded by emails and calls, which, frankly, they're more happy to have meetings with providers after seeing that they can receive an offer for an equal or greater service or an equal or greater amount of coverage in the case of insurance and health benefits. So we really have used technology to make this a simpler and easier process for them.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to just kind of thinking about managing administration in costs and the operational costs, what are some common mistakes that you see dentists making when it comes to these areas? What are they doing or not doing?
I think most people are actually going with, I would say, they make good decisions at a specific point in time. And then as so much changes in the market with new competitors coming into each industry, new offers, new services and price points and specials, sometimes they're not able to capture and annually benchmark their expenses and ensure that they're actually having the best rates and terms in the industry. So until now, it's really been challenging to do so. And as I referenced earlier, my uncle had a CFO. It's his full-time position, and even he was unable to do it very effectively. So I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with dentists or executives of DSOs and managing these. I think there's just a better way to benchmark and determine cost reduction categories annually.
Okay. So within the platform, do you have benchmarking tools that the doctors can actually look at and analyze to figure out, hey, where are your costs coming in at?
Yes, we do. So at the end of the analysis, we provide documents that actually show the benchmark of which categories are able to reduce costs by a percentage and also a dollar amount from a monthly and an annual perspective. We show that 3-year cost savings as well. So they're able to benchmark and actually see the data. They're able to see which other providers are in the market that have submitted more competitive offers. And in many cases, we can also renegotiate with existing providers if they're really happy with the service and quality they're receiving. They would just prefer to have us negotiate some special rates with their existing provider.
Okay, so you can even do negotiation with existing providers sometimes if the practice doesn't want to necessarily change out providers.
That's correct. And especially with payroll, we've seen with some larger DSOs that have hundreds of employees, it would really be challenging to change out payroll and go through that headache. So in some cases, it makes more sense to renegotiate. However, if someone's unhappy with the service or there's been countless mistakes, we can help find a better provider in that situation as well. So we're really a personalized and tailored approach to each group and what is really best for them and where they're prioritizing at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I want to dive a little deeper on that if that's okay, because saving money is certainly good, but sometimes saving money can actually end up costing you more, right? When you start thinking about the services that are provided and responsiveness of teams, and maybe you have another vendor who's going to charge substantially less, but maybe there's something missing that we don't know about, or maybe instead of having a dedicated sales rep, now you got a call center that you go to. So how do you help doctors think through that? Because price matters, but you also want that value piece too. And you really want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. How does your platform help the doctors think through those kind of intangible parts?
It's a great point because cheapest isn't always best. And when we were creating our provider network, we actually set some pretty, I would say, high standards and benchmarks for allowing providers to come into our network. We're not just allowing any provider into our network. They have to have a certain net promoter score, which is a customer service rating, and it's across the industry. So we're going to make sure that whoever our clients are working with is a great company. They've been around for a long time. And we've actually negotiated that they will have a customer support specialist instead of a 1-800 ladder, as you mentioned. And we're also, because we have advisors that are experts in each industry, we're able to determine and show that the offers they're receiving is for an equal or greater amount of service or coverage, especially with insurance. We don't want to be slashing premium and reducing coverage and increasing deductibles. And with health benefits, we're not looking to reduce costs and have some unhappy employees with a loss of coverage as well. So we show in that analysis and those benchmarkings where the offers come in, and we're only going to present them with offers that are for equal service that they have or a better service. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to insurance, commercial insurance, in many cases we find we're able to reduce premium while also increasing coverage. So it's important for us, and obviously it's a priority for clients of ours to ensure they're reducing costs, they're doing it responsibly, and actually most times upgrading with a service or customer support.
Okay, no, that's huge. And actually, for those listeners who don't know, can you give a little explanation of what Net Promoter Score is? I know when I first heard that term, I was really unclear on what does this thing mean? Why does it matter? And like why are we measuring it? And so for those who don't know, give us a little overview of what Net Promoter Score is and how that really differs than just like a standard survey of, hey, are you happy with this company?
My understanding, I'm not an expert of the Net Promoter Score. I frankly just look at them and know what a good benchmark is. It's an industry standard where others in an industry, be it payroll or PEO, payment processing, are held to a certain standard of excellence when it comes to delivering on their offers, what they are promoting, and also being able to, based on industry experts as well as clients, how well someone is performing and delivering on what is in their agreements and what they've promised. So that's one of our benchmarks, and we hold pretty close to it. So if it's a really well-known company, very prestigious company, but the Net Promoter Score and some other customer service requirements aren't up to our standard, we just don't allow them onto the platform.
Okay. Yeah, and I actually really like the Net Promoter Score because so often you may do a client survey And a client may say, yeah, I'm happy with this company. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, I give them a 7. I'm happy with them. But they're not necessarily willing to promote or recommend the company. That's what Net Promoter Score measures, is it measures how likely are you actually to tell someone else about this company and say, you need to work with this company because they're actually doing things the right way. And so it's more of an active score, at least in my mind, because it really measures, like, are you willing to promote this company to other people? So to me, it's a very powerful score that speaks volumes, because if you're willing to recommend something, you're more than just satisfied with it. You actually like it and you believe they're providing incredible value. So to me, the fact that you're using the Net Promoter Score to really rank and review the vendors that you let in your marketplace, that is such a big win. Huge win, Matthew.
Thank you. And thank you for expanding on how I understood it as well. That's a powerful metric as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to just overall expenses, right, there's another benefit of, not just putting more money in your pocket, but that has some impact on a pretty special number that most entrepreneurs like to measure, called EBITDA. So talk to me a little bit about the impact that it actually has on the bottom line and practice valuations.
Absolutely. We're seeing that really be a driver with especially some DSOs that we're working with and reaching certain EBITDA, growth and helping market valuations. Just to give you some context, we've worked with a few DSOs and we've been able to help reduce costs in categories up to 50%. The average is normally between 20 and 40%. And by having between $150,000 and $250,000 in some cases, it's more, go right to the bottom line and boost EBITDA. Depending on where that EBITDA is, we're seeing market multiples in this current environment somewhere between 5 and 8x. Some are much larger depending on EBITDA, but it's really helping people reach certain benchmarks where they're looking to sell or they're looking to buy. And that's a main driver, especially with folks that are looking to, take it to the next level, whether they're going from, medium size to elite or expanding their portfolio.
Yeah. Well, right. Because you can certainly grow your revenues, but, if you add an extra $1 of revenue, you may only have another, 60 cents hitting the bottom line. Whereas if you save $1, you've actually saved $1. And if you're at an 8 times multiple, that's $8 that you'll get when you go to sell. So if you end up saving $100,000, you just created, literally out of the blue, an extra $800,000 of value for all the stakeholders in the practice. So this is so powerful what you're doing, because you really have created an easy way to do it and a simple way to do it. And so could you share a couple success stories that you've had with Spindley, and how you've come in and looked at a practice and really transformed that practice to add more profitability, more to the bottom line, increase that EBITDA, and increase the valuation?
Absolutely. We've been able to work with some sizable DSOs at this point. I'll just highlight one. It was a 16 location DSO. We're able to discover around $131,000 in annual cost savings. And then 8 practice DSO, we were able to discover around $287,000 in annual cost savings. So we really have honed in on the sweet spot. And what I'm the most excited about, frankly, with Spendley and beyond cost savings, is how we can actually help people realize those savings in a very simple, straightforward strategy that's not disrupting their day-to-day operations. It's quite seamless. So as you mentioned, you can add $1 of revenue and sometimes you realize 60 to 80 cents on the bottom line. It's really exciting to be able to save this amount of money year to year. So in the long run, it's increasing EBITDA, but it's also a strategy where people don't have to go through a cold sweat and kind of panic about how they can actually realize those savings. And it's not impossible. It's not a heavy lift. It's actually quite easier, quicker, and simpler than some may realize or be aware of.
Oh, how many practices today do you think are actually really running lean and really running with expenses under control? And so who can benefit from Spindley? If you think you've got a lean practice, is it still worth taking a look at things?
It's always worth taking a look, because we're actually incentivized to discover the best offer in the market for a practice. So we make money from a percentage of realized savings from our clients. So there's no cost, there's no upfront cost for us to perform an analysis. If you're happy with the cost reduction and the savings, that's the only way that we're going to make money. So I think there's always an upside. There's no risk to have an analysis completed. And then from our experience, we just completed our Q3 analysis. We had around between 60 and 70 practices that onboarded Spindley. And I think the average cost reduction, I may be off by a couple percentage points, but cost reduction for payment processing was 51% on average. For payroll, it was 44% on average. For commercial insurance, it was 24% cost reduction. And then for health benefits, it was around 8%. So
Wow.
we've yet 96% of practices that join Spendley discover cost reduction. And that should give you an idea of how much cost reduction is really available.
Oh my gosh. Well, and that kind of actually led into my next question. And you kind of answered, but I want to spell it out a little more clearly for people. But what are those common areas of overspending, right? You just mentioned some of them, and is that the order? Are those really the common areas you see? It sounded like payroll is really the number one area. Did I hear that correctly, or is there another area where you see overspending most common?
Payment processing and payroll are
processing.
definitely top two. A lot of times people don't realize that with their practice management softwares, they just get set up with a preferred vendor with those practice management softwares because they're getting a kickback from the provider. So there are other integration capabilities, and that's why we're seeing those costs be so high. I mean, on average, 51% of a cost reduction by just changing providers that can integrate in with their practice management system, and they don't have to make a change. And then payroll is another large, expense that we're seeing. And then, commercial insurance, we've seen range anywhere from 20 to 40%. Last quarter was a little bit lower, around 24%. And then health benefits just depends on the size of the location and the number of employees. That's a very large expense. We're seeing rates steadily increase. And that's actually a category we're proud to help reduce costs on. And with the providers that are in our network, they're also able to help increase coverage in many situations. But we just started with waste management and with internet as well. You'd be surprised. I think the averages are between 25 and 30% overspending in those areas. So as I'm sure you're aware, it really all adds up. And unless you have eyes on it and know what other alternatives are available, people just tend to focus on the day-to-day operations, trying to drive revenue when cost reduction may be the answer they're really looking for.
Now, typically, right, I do a lot of work in the qualified plan space and the retirement planning benefits, and I often run across cost savings that I'm able to implement. What are you finding when you're running the analysis on the retirement plans? Because I'm guessing you've got far more data than I do.
Yeah, you're the expert. I'll say that it's amazing how fees and rates can creep up, especially when folks are adding to their plans over several years. A lot of times people that we meet and work with don't even know don't have an idea of what rates or terms they've agreed to until someone like us comes along. So it's a little surprising, frankly, just to see how people just are either completely unaware of what they're paying, or they think they're paying a certain rate and a certain fee, and it's much higher than it actually is. But we've almost in a way become desensitized to it. It's pretty much normal and standard across the industries. And we're here to help and bring awareness, help benchmark, and provide options that can solve a rate increase and overspending.
Yeah. Well, and interestingly enough, this is something the super rich do all the time. So I've been privileged to help underwrite a lot of research on family offices, which are the structure the ultra wealthy use to manage their financial affairs. And what's interesting about these family office structures is the super rich do something called stress testing all the time. And stress testing is a process where they trust but verify, right? Like our president Ronald Reagan used to say, they trust what they're getting, but they actually want to verify. And they're looking for two things. They're looking to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there and avoid costly errors along the ways. And one of the ways they avoid the costly error is they realize like they're always reviewing the cost structure of things, because so often we set things up. It was good a year ago. It was good a couple years ago, but the markets are always changing. And so paying attention to this absolutely has a big impact. And if the super rich are doing it, you might want to consider following in their footsteps and doing this also. And I love how easy this makes that process. It really puts a team on your side to help you reduce those cost savings. And so, like I said, I see the super rich do it. I would encourage you to also benchmark and know your expenses. And so kind of along with that, why don't you think a lot of CPAs or, even fractional CFOs or some of the accountants and bookkeepers, they don't typically do this kind of work, do they?
They do not. And I love what you just said with trust but verify. I think the reason why some folks do not do this is controversial as this may sound, they have too much trust in the relationships of folks that they're working with. And I'll give you a great example. We had a practice that joined Spendley. They were working with an insurance broker who was a friend of theirs for around 30 years. And when we approached them about Spendley, they said, well, I have a friend. He's my broker. I know that I'm getting the best rate possible. And I'm happy to upload my policy. I'd be really surprised if something were to come back more competitive. Well, turns out that we found several options that were more competitive. And as a matter of fact, I think the top offer was around 35% more competitive. And the doctor was completely shocked and asked how it could be. And so we then asked, how long have you been with not the broker, not your friend, but with this particular carrier? And he went back and did some research, and turns out over the entire time he was with his friend and the broker, he was with the same carrier. And we tried to explain to him, and he understood that a lot of times brokers, not all, but most that we see when someone's working with a broker, is they're with a particular carrier for a very long period of time. And the reason being is that that broker is building up a book of business with an individual carrier. And what that means is they're actually being able to receive a percentage of profit share. And they're also able to build up a book of business with that carrier. Those two income streams and values are in addition to the premium that they're earning commissions on for renewals. So the broker was never really incentivized to explore the best offer in the market. Again, not all brokers are this way. I don't want to speak for every case, just speaking on this particular opportunity. So this dentist had a lot of trust and a lot of faith in his colleague. He accepted the offer he received on Spindley, and I think had a conversation with his friend. Hopefully the friendship is still alive. But I think a lot of times people aren't looking at this because they do have some trust. They do have relationships, which is fine. However, if they're looking to have a neutral third party analyze and benchmark these expenses, share some other alternatives, Spindley could be a really good platform and service to use for that, and just help people be aware of what's available.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get futuristic for a moment. Let's look out, grab our crystal balls. Mine's usually wrong, but it's fun to think about the future sometimes. And so, how do you see technology continuing to play a role in cost savings for dental practices? And how do you see this evolving over the next 5 years?
Over the next 5 years, I feel strongly that Spendley will be a verb. Just like we say Google it, we'll say Spendley it. I feel technology and automation is developing at a rapid rate, and more data market forces are able to converge. So it's going to allow people to have more transparency into their finances, understand what options are available and accessible at their fingertips to make the best decisions. And I have a strong inclination that this is going to transcend so many other industries beyond administrative expenses, but into almost all administrative and operating expenses.
Yeah. Well, right. I'm guessing even in the future, you could wrap in things like the debt structure and debt payments and rates and right. I mean, it just feels like it could expand into so many things.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think you're right. There's a lot of market forces that are changing, a lot of industries, new players that are coming in. We're really in a dynamic uh, time in life and in business. So I'm excited to see, and I feel people will be able to operate more efficiently in the upcoming years, and technology will be an important role of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is there a cost savings tip that you'd give every dentist listening today, right? If they're looking to boost their profit margins, like what's a cost saving tip that you would offer them?
Well, I would say to be mindful of expenses, and if expenses seem to be increasing more than 8% in one category over a quarter, or certainly over a year, um, that they should probably reach out and take a look and, as you mentioned, trust but verify, and explore some other alternatives. That's a benchmark that we have internally as well. If we see something is increasing by more than 8%, then we're going to explore some other alternatives compared to what we're using right now. So I would say just quarterly or annually, if something's increased by more than 8%, then you should check out other options.
Okay, so if you're looking at your P&L, if you see something you're like, just I don't remember it being that much just a short while ago. That's probably a clue that you should actually do some cost analysis on that area and really make sure that you aren't overpaying in those areas. And it's just kind of look at your P&L and look at what are the pain points on it.
That's right. It's
Excellent.
Yeah, some of the simplest truths are the greatest ones. So that's what I would recommend, just from
Excellent.
our experience.
So Matthew, how can we get in touch with you? I put your Spindley link down, so if you want to get a quote, you can click below. But how can we find you?
Thank you. You can find us on our website, www.getspendley. If someone would be interested in reaching out to me directly, I'm happy to have a conversation. And my email address is Matthew, Mathew, @getspendley. And I believe we're sharing a link with you as well, Tim, to kind of help people get in touch, whether they want to learn some more information or receive a cost structure analysis. They can book a meeting there with myself or a member of our team.
Excellent. So any closing thoughts before we sign off here?
Well, at this point, we're in October, and I know as 2025 approaches and there's budgeting and financial planning, could be helpful to have some analysis to review internally with team members and explore alternatives. So I'd say definitely, as you mentioned, and that might be an adage of Spendley, trust but verify, one of these days, to kind of help with that budgeting and financial planning period. Just be top of mind, and any way we can help, that's something that we're looking to get involved with.
Yeah. No, quarter four is a great time to look at these things, right? It's on everyone's mind. We're setting budgets for next year. So I would encourage you, if you are unsure that you have optimized the expenses in your practice, now's the quarter to do it. Don't wait, don't put it off. It literally could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars. So do the analysis, right? Spindley has made it easy. And that's why I was so excited to have Matthew on the show today, because this is solving such a big problem that I see across many practices. So thank you for that reminder, right? Quarter four, great time to do this stuff.
Absolutely. And it's sort of busy time too. So we're seeing it firsthand, and would love to just play a role in helping practices grow and keep more of what they earn.
Yeah. Well, excellent. Well, hey, Matthew, thank you for sharing so generously with us. And thank you for creating an incredible platform that allows us to reduce our expenses, put more of our hard-earned money back in our pocket, and in the process, increase the values of the businesses that you are working so hard to build. Well, what an incredible, incredible thing that you're doing for the industry. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your wisdom and knowledge with us.
Thank you for having me. This is a great podcast, and you have a lot of great guests on. It's an honor and a privilege to be here today, and I wish everyone well in the upcoming budgeting and financial planning for 2025. And if there's a way we can help, please get in touch with us. We'd love to be a part of it.
Excellent. Well, hey, thank you everyone for tuning in. I would encourage you to take advantage of this. It doesn't cost you anything, and you might save some money in the process. Like, that's a win-win. Those are the things we like. That's the value we want to bring to you. So get out there, make it a great day, and thank you for tuning in to the Dental Wealth Nation show. We'll see you again here soon, and take care, everyone.
You've been listening to Dental Wealth Nation. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Join us next time as we pull back the curtain to reveal the often hidden advice and strategies used by today's most successful individuals and families, and help maximize your net worth so you can take even better care of the people you love. Till next time, make sure to hit the website at dentalwealthnation.com.